Hey everyone, Paul Johnson, Waconia, Minnesota, and the Laughing Trout Fly Tying Club. Today I'm going to be tying my version of a pheasant tail nymph. Standard version, just a couple changes. Maybe it'll make it a little bit simpler for you to tie. And we'll go through that, what my changes were when I get into the actual tying. So my go-to is a size 16, 1XL long nymph hook. The tail, being it's a pheasant tail nymph, of course, is going to be pheasant tail fibers. The abdomen, same thing, pheasant tail fibers. The rib is gold wire, size brassy. The wing case on top is also pheasant tail fibers. The thorax is going to be super bright peacock dubbing. And in the wing, is the difference is the hen hackle. So let's get started here. Already put a 2.4 millimeter tungsten bead on my hook. As I mentioned, it's a size 16, 1XL long dry fly hook, kind of my standard for this fly pattern. For thread today, I'm going to be using brown, dark brown, and a 14-aught. Tying thread really doesn't much matter on this pattern because you're really not going to see any exposed wraps. So just get my tying thread started. Bring it my wraps right to the bend of the hook. All right, now I've got some pheasant tail fibers. Now if you get especially if you're a newer tyer and you get a pheasant tail fiber or pheasant tail, not all the fibers on it are the same length or the same size. So you want to, a lot of times on the base of the feather, you want to cut those off. They're just not going to be long enough. Same with any hackle really, or any materials, natural materials, it's not all going to be uniform. So just make sure that you're kind of watching what you're doing. Okay, I want this to be, not quite a hook shank length for the tail. So just make a couple wraps there. Make sure I'm happy with that. And yeah, that looks good. Now, I'm going to length of copper wire. Actually gold wire, but I'm just going to make one wrap there. Now I'm going to come underneath and I'll further secure that in place. I should note that I have 8 pheasant tail fibers here. And yes, I do count each one. Now when I tie this without having the video camera running, I would use my rotary vise, but just wrap it naturally here. Now take a little bit of care right here to make sure that you got that first wrap at the back of the hook. You don't want to have a gap there. And then we're just going to wind that forward until we get to right behind the bead of the hook. Come in with my tying thread and tie that off. Cut off that excess. Now I'm going to make wraps with the wire. I'm going to counter wrap it again. I don't think it matters much, but I'm just so used to counter wrapping. I'm going to try to get 5 wraps in here. Just even spaced wraps moving forward. And should end up right behind the bead. Secure that in place with my tying thread, and then fingernail clippers come in and cut that excess off. Make sure that that's tied down good. Now I'm going to move back maybe almost 60% mark on my hook. And now this time I've got, I'm tying the wing case. So I've got 10 pheasant tail fibers, and I've cut the tips off back to a kind of a uniform size. So I'll tie that in right on top of the hook shank. Come in now and add some of that Peacock Dubbing. So this is a Wapsi product, and it's their super bright dubbing in Peacock. If you watched some of my other videos, you've seen the same material a couple of times. I buy it by the pound instead of by the package. Just a little bit more economical for me because I use so much of it. So build up a pretty good thorax with that. You certainly can use Peacock Hurl. I like this coloration a little bit better. I think it's also a little bit more durable. If it gets a little bit wild on there, you can kind of come in there and cut some of that off. Okay, now the standard pheasant tail nymph that you would tie would take that wing case, fold it over, split it, and form the legs. But I've never really been able to figure out how to get them uniform in length. So what I've done is I've taken a hen hackle feather. Hopefully you can kind of see that. So I've pulled off the fuzzies off the stem, and then I cut the center stem off and kind of formed this V. And I'm going to use that for my legs. So go right on top of the hook. I'm going to come in with right on top of the hook. Try to get a hold of it. I'm going to come in with one collecting wrap, the thread. Make sure my length is okay, and you can, if it's not, you can just gently tug on that a little bit. All right, that looks okay. Come in, tie that off, and I'll clip off that excess. Okay, now I'm going to pull that wing case forward and split those legs we just tied in and make a thread wrap right behind the bead. I'm going to come underneath it, back over the top, and back underneath that wing case. A little bit of hen hackle, we just clip that off there. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to whip finish at this point in time. So I'll kind of hold that wing case back and get my whip finish in there. And I do that because as my thread pulls tight, if I don't do that, sometimes that wing case will want to spin around the top of the hook shank, and I don't want that. So now I can come in and cut off that excess. And there we have it, Pheasant Tail Nymph. Get that a little bit better there. Now if you wanted to, you certainly could put a drop of head cement or the new UV resins on that wing case and add that a little bit on there just to give you an idea what it looks like. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy it.